Yeah. The course that I'm doing this for is Hybrid Marriage and Family, which is cross-listed for Gender and Women's Studies and for Sociology as well. It's a 300-level course. So they supposedly know something about sociology at this point. I did put this out for feedback. Nancy gave me some great feedback, thank you, especially for something that I could and would put and will really put in my syllabus, which is about cognitive discourse, I think you called it. Yes, do I have the term right? In terms of doing discussion board and giving them points for what they do, which was something, for me, the way I've done discussion board in the past is just, okay, you did, now you're good. Okay, but for this, with the blog that they have, they're going to need to add something to it. It's kind of the exercise that I have is something I've used in the classroom. The students, I got feedback from 2 different students, one who had done the exercise in class and one who had never seen it before. And they both thought it was a great exercise, so let me just show you everything. First off, they're going to be assigned into groups, which they will be for the whole class. God knows how big this class is going to be. And I want them to be sure to use their individual blogs for their group for the discussion, for this timeline exercise, basically. And it's just a timeline that I'll show you in a minute about what has historically happened in the world of marriage and family and when things have happened, because they find that they have no idea. They think everything happened yesterday. They don't realize that things happened in the 1600s. So I want them to have some exchange of ideas about the dates and communicate with each other via the blog. And there's several different pieces in here, actually, that they get to look at. When it comes up, this is the exercise itself. So they get to see all these, there's 30 of these that are on here for which they have to assign dates, okay, basically. And I want them to work together as a group to put this together. Following that, they would have to assign dates to each of these things. There's one slide that just has all the dates on it for them to take a look at. That's it. And so there's 30, they each get 3, so on and so forth. Following that, they have to submit one copy, so they'll have to have a group leader, and that one group leader will submit a copy of it to me so that I can see what they had. Then they have to write a reaction paper, okay, after they get the answers to that. There's documents for all of these things. So there's the blank to submit to me, done as an assignment. Then also they get the correct answer. So there's a whole same document with the second column, and some of which have references. Not all. Okay, and then what they're supposed to do is submit an individual reaction paper, not a group paper, just an individual reaction paper so that I can see what they need to do. And basically that's it.
What do you define as the problem that this solves?
The problem this solves is taking something that I do in class and converting it to something that they can do online. So that's basically one of the first things that I wanted to be able to achieve. Can I take something that I'm used to doing and having them sit down and talk about with each other and spend the whole period, basically hour and 15 minutes, sitting there talking about? What it also forces them to do, because this is likely to be their first group exercise, is get them to know each other and get them to communicate with each other rather than being on an island as they often are. And even in this fashion, in a hybrid fashion, they probably will have met once and never, you know, and only see each other with very limited communication or face-to-face again. So this is going to force them, and it's also going to make them into more of a community, which is what I try to tend to seek. That allows them to be more open with each other, and it allows them to communicate better.
Do you have them work in groups on this assignment in class now?
They've physically worked in groups in class, but the groups vary depending on the size of the class. Like this semester, I've got 70 people in marriage and family. So 70. Okay. So when there are 10 people in a group, say I make 7 groups, they really don't get to communicate very much with each other because they're just sitting on the floor and, you know, real quick they're trying to come up with dates. This they'll have a little bit more time to come up with something. I don't want them to do any research. I want them to go with their gut, but they're going to have to come up with an argument also from their gut, just based on their own prior knowledge.
Open it up to other questions.
How are they communicating as they're doing their discussion of this? Is this, we set a blog?
Yeah.
You have set up the, okay.
Yeah, I set up a blog that's maybe there. That's there.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how they would communicate with each other, because it's online. Now, granted, one of the things I hope to find out on the first day is when are they going to be available? Because as Nancy had suggested to me, you know, there are those who are going to kick back and not want to be participatory, but if I give them based on their schedules and assign their groups based on their schedules, then they're going to almost have forced communication. And that'll make, hopefully, everybody communicate equally. I find a lot of people who do not tend to speak in class are way happier to do so, like in a discussion board format or in another type of format. So that's one of the things I found in my classes now.
Is there going to be a group grade depending on whether they get the correct results or not?
I'm not grading them for their correct results because I don't expect them to get the
Because
group.
the issue, I'm wondering, what incentive do they have to discuss each of these things as groups? And based on based on the team-based learning thing with Larry Michaels that we had earlier, one kind of obvious response would be they're going to. How many different things did you have? You had like 10 or 15 different?
There's 10 dates.
10?
Three
Ten
events
different-
to each date.
How many items? 30 items?
30. Well, there's 30 in
items.
total.
And how many, like the size of the group would be?
I don't know what my enrollment's going to be.
Let's say you had a group of 5, so one reaction would be they're going to divide it in.
But I'm going to be able to see because I'm a member of the group. And to me, I'm going to be able to see how they're communicating and what they're doing. I don't grade them on what they think. I just want them to think. Because I don't expect them to be right. I don't expect them to be right. If you looked at some of these, I mean, really, if I gave this exercise to all of you, most of you would not be correct.
So would it be fair to say that the purpose of this exercise is less about their content knowledge and more about their group dynamic?
It's very much about their group dynamic, and it also seems to be a good way for them to have learned pretty much a marriage and family timeline, when things have become acceptable in different parts of the country, when different things have happened, when families have been more or predominantly, I'm going to throw this out here and nobody's going to know what I'm talking about, like when have they been predominantly breadwinner homemaker?
Right.
Okay, stuff like that. They have no idea. Because, you know, when did kids become latchkey kids? Well, they think that happened in the 70s. It actually happened in the 40s. So without them doing any research, they get surprised. And they do argue with each other about it in class. I'm expecting that they will out of class as well.
So is this a kind of pretest then?
Not really.
Somewhere?
I really want to see how surprised they are at the knowledge that they have.
Is a blog the best way to encourage the group discussion thing, or would a wiki or a discussion board zone perhaps encourage more of a back and forth?
Because I want to keep it limited to those who are within that group, that's why I did not want to do a discussion board. I
Because you can do
wanted,
discussion boards for each group.
yeah. I figured a blog might be a good idea for them to do it because then they could comment and see each other's comments and do all that kind of stuff, and they wouldn't get themselves crazy with threads.
A suggestion, the document that I saw that you pull up was a Word document.
Yes, it was.
You might want to consider a wiki, because a wiki is a collaborative editing tool that where people are going to be putting information on. What you're going to have is some version control problems. You know, how are they going to, who's going to pass the document around? That can be a logistical challenge for any group. And then if they're gonna be doing it online, you know, a wiki might facilitate that a little bit more. We could spend a little time, you know,
Okay.
after the fact, but it would also tell you who's contributed. You could grade that wiki based on the participation of it,
Right.
and you can see who's actually, you know, done the contributions. Because where I think David was going before, and this is a reference to the team-based learning piece. What he did say, and I would encourage people to look at that archive, which I'll be sending out shortly. Any group assignment that allows students to divvy it up is a bad group assignment. Because what it ends up doing is it creates small individual work, not collaborative kinds of things. So, you know, you can kind of mull on that statement or not, but it was an interesting premise that if you come up with group assignments that they can't divvy up, it forces them to work, you know, on those things a little bit more closely. So just
Right.
a suggestion.
Well, the difference in, basically the enrollments that I've had in summer and winter for this course have not been 70. It's been more like 18 to 20.
Okay.
So given that, if I break them into groups, they're not going to be able to divvy up very much, especially when they know that I'm going to be looking.
Well,
Yeah, they won't
if only to
choose to.
facilitate their not having to pass a Word document, you might
Right,
want to just think about
right.
the wiki. So that was it.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to say is that given something like this, because, and it does tell them, there's no right or wrong here. That is what I really want them to understand. I want them to go, as I said, with their gut.
Yeah, the other thing, and I know we're getting short on time here. Yesterday, we had Tim Hardy talking about his class where he uses adaptive release. The self-reflection assignment, you could make that, their participation in the wiki a precondition for their ability to see the folder that would allow them to submit their personal reflection.
Okay.
Maybe just some things, you know, that you could
Yeah.
sort of structure it to
So that they
develop the kind
can't,
of,
right.
yeah.
And the
right.
same
Okay.
with the answers. that
Right.
They couldn't necessarily see the answers until whoever the group leader submits the paper, the
Right.
final version.
Right,
That-
and then I
yeah,
can
it
use
opens
adaptive
yeah.
release to do that. That's good.
And I think we taped him yesterday, so I would encourage you to take a look at what he's doing.
Okay.
He's really got his finger right on that adaptive release
Okay,
function.
I will take a look at that.
Great, good job, we
Absolutely.
gotta move on.